The Athletic.
Hi folks, welcome to another episode of the Athletic FPL podcast. I'm Mark McGettigan. You can find me on Twitter at FPL General. The end of the international break is in sight, thankfully. The Gameweek 8 deadline is on Saturday at 11 AM UK time. It's only a few days until we are cursing clean sheet wipeouts again. The manager press conferences on Thursday and Friday will be key to our decisions this week, with players returning from trips around the world. A few players have been yellow flagged, players like Lukaku and Rudiger. Hopefully they're just phantom international break injuries and they'll be okay for the weekend. We also need an update on the fitness of Trent Alexander-Arnold. On today's episode, I'll run through the Gameweek 7 headlines and shoutouts, do a quick Gameweek review. My wildcard is active, so I'm going to talk you through my wildcard watchlist, answer Twitter questions, discuss Gameweek 8 captaincy, and then reveal my latest wildcard draft. There will be another Athletic FPL podcast on Friday, so make sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening for that one. And if you'd like to become an Athletic subscriber, visit theathletic.com/FPL pod, where you'll get 33% off an annual subscription. And in doing so, you'll get ad-free versions of this podcast. Gameweek 7 feels like a long time ago now, so here is a reminder of the headlines from that weekend. Cristiano Ronaldo was benched by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for the 1-1 draw with Everton. He came on to play just 33 minutes for a measly one-pointer. Chelsea's Thomas Tuchel rang the changes for their game at home to Southampton, which the Blues won 3-1. Like Ronaldo, Lukaku blanked, but Azpilicueta got 2 assists, while Ben Chilwell got himself a goal. The Ward-Prowse red card changed the game. Leeds recorded a 1-0 win over Watford in what was to be Xisco Munoz's last game in charge of the Hornets. Claudio Ranieri has taken over, so it'll be interesting to see what impact he has there. At Wolves, Raul Jimenez provided 2 assists for Wang to get a brace for Wolves as they beat Newcastle 2-1. The Newcastle takeover finally went through during the break as well, so we'll all probably have triple Magpies in our FPL team next season. Brighton and Arsenal played out a 0-0 draw at the Amex. Crystal Palace fought back from a 2-0 deficit to get a point against Leicester. Heung-min Son got 2 assists for Tottenham in their 2-1 win over Aston Villa to stake his claim for a place in Gameweek 8 wildcard squads. I'll talk about him later. Out of position midfielder Bruyne Mbeumo scored his second goal of the season as Brentford beat West Ham at the London Stadium. Another impressive performance and result from the Bees. And finally, Liverpool and Manchester City finished 2-2. The second half of that game was superb. The goal scorers, Salah, Mane, Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden. Salah is averaging 10 points per game. He is on another level this year. Shoutouts for Gameweek 7. We have 2 new members to the 59th Minute Club. Welcome Aaron Lennon from Burnley and Hamza Chowdhury from Leicester. I love that Chowdhury's first appearance of the season resulted in a 59th minute substitution. Notable players who were substituted early in that game week: Odegaard 63 minutes, Grealish 66, Jota 68, which is often the case, Conor Gallagher at Crystal Palace 71 minutes, but I wouldn't be too worried about that one. That guy gets through an awful lot of running in games, so I think it was just a breather, so I think he's still an absolutely fine player to buy. And finally, Aubameyang at Arsenal 72 minutes. I watched that Arsenal-Brighton game a couple of days ago, and I thought Aubameyang had a really poor game, so it was no surprise to see him taken off early, and he's not in my thoughts at all when it comes to wildcard. So as always, Game Week 8 this weekend, when you're watching the games, keep an eye on the clocks, and if there's 59th minute substitutions, make sure to tag me in the tweets. A quick review of how my Game Week 7 went. I'm going to make it quick because it wasn't a good one. Like many people, it was a disappointing game week. It's always frustrating when you have a bad one going into an international break. You have to look at the disappointing points total for 14 days. 38 points. My rank dropped from 189k to 264k, so it felt like a good time to hit the wildcard. So I hit the button straight away on the Saturday of Game Week 7. I think it was after the Manchester United game because I had Shaw, Greenwood and Ronaldo in my team. So I hit the button very firmly after that disappointing performance. I made one transfer in Game Week 7. I got rid of Trent and I brought in Rudiger. I knew I was probably going to wildcard in Game Week 8, so it was easy enough to sell Trent knowing I could get him back this game week. The good and the bad. The good is very short. Sanchez and Veltman got me clean sheets. They basically limited the damage. Could have been a lot worse because otherwise Salah would have been the only player who got me points. Salah got 13. That was it. The bad, blanks for Shaw, Rudiger, Greenwood, Benrahma, Sarr, Antonio, Saint-Maximin and Ronaldo. A lot of those players have now disappeared from my squad. I'm going to talk through my wildcard watch list now. Then I'll do the Twitter questions. Then I'll come back to my latest wildcard draft. So to give you an idea of the player pool I'm considering this week on the wildcard. I know a lot of people are on a wildcard this week, and even if you're not, I think it's good to hear the players that we're interested in going into Game Week 8. So I'll start with goalkeepers, and it's probably the hardest decision I'm going to have to make this week. I still think goalkeepers this season is pretty tricky. There's no standout best option. There's lots of viable options at cheap prices. So the goalkeepers on my wildcard watch list are Sanchez, who I've had all season, so I might end up just keeping him. Ramsdale at Arsenal, because I think he's underpriced. I think he should have been 5 million, and he seems to be number 1 now. And Raya at Brentford, who's had a very good start to the season as well. So there's no Ederson on my watch list, which means I'm probably not going to go there. I had given him some thought, but to me, when I weigh it up, I just think, why go Ederson when I can go Diaz instead? I rather a double up. If I'm going to Man City defensive double up, I prefer Cancelo and Diaz rather than one of the defenders and Ederson. I've always liked saving money on the goalkeeper position. So if you go for a Sanchez, a Ramsdale or a Raya, you've got 1.5 million extra you can use in your squad. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be on a cheap goalkeeper. The question is which one. And I've been mulling it over. When I hit the wild card last Saturday, straight away I got rid of Sanchez and I put in Ramsdale. But having thought about it more, done a bit more research, I watched the Arsenal-Brighton game, I've looked at the numbers for the season as well, and statistically Brighton are the better defence this season, and obviously they were last season as well. Brighton have been good defensively for quite a while now, and I know Sanchez is a pretty boring pick, and there is a temptation to lose him on the wildcard. In particular, he's got Norwich next, Sanchez, but then he's got, I think he might have Liverpool and City very soon. So, but I'm trying to make the goalkeeper pick a long-term one, and I'm leaning towards Sanchez now at the moment. I just think, I got him Game Week 1, viewed him as a season keeper, so why should I lose him on a wildcard when he's done absolutely fine. He's not an exciting goalkeeper, but at 4.5, 4.6, he does exactly what it says on the tin. So I think I'll end up keeping him. Ramsdale is very tempting, but I still think there's slight concerns there when Leno is in the background. All it takes is a bad performance from Ramsdale, and we could see Leno come back in. So I really don't want to pick a goalkeeper on a wildcard and then have to sell him at some point in the future. So for that reason, Sanchez to me probably suits my style of management. I'm boring, I'm safe. And to me, Sanchez is a safer pick than Ramsdale, even though there's a lot of temptation there because I think Ramsdale will get more saves. I think he probably will get more bonus as well. I'm not ruling them out just yet, but I am leaning towards Sanchez. Raya, I think, is a very good option as well, but I just have a little bit more faith in Brighton defensively than I do Brentford. So I think all three are very good options. A few people mentioned Goeta as well at Crystal Palace. Don't like him as much as the others, but I still think he's viable. And I wouldn't stop anyone from going for Ederson, but personally I just prefer saving the cash and putting it elsewhere in the squad. So for me, my goalkeeper decision is going to be Sanchez, Ramsdale or Raya, and I'm currently leaning towards Robert Sanchez. Defenders on the wildcard watch list: Trent Alexander-Arnold for obvious reasons. Cancelo and Diaz may end up with both of them. Rudiger and Azpilicueta. Not sure yet whether I'll have one Chelsea defender or two. If I have one, probably Rudiger. If I have two, it will be Rudiger and Azpilicueta. I'm probably just going to avoid the rotation risks in the fullback positions or the wingback positions. Livramento is probably going to be nailed on because he's 4.2 million and he's great. Just a nice enabler. The other defenders in my thoughts, White at Arsenal and Duffy at Brighton. Midfielders, Salah, Rafinha, they kind of explain themselves. Heung-min Son wasn't really in my thoughts when I built my first wildcard draft last Saturday, but been talking to a few people about Son over the past few days, and what I like about him is people who don't have a wildcard are probably going to find it hard to get to Son. He's got the Newcastle fixture this weekend, and Tottenham have got a good run of fixtures on the horizon soon as well. So Son is in my thoughts at the moment. Doesn't look like he's going to make the cut though. Other midfielders in my thoughts, Mbeumo probably going to make it because quite simply he's out of position. He's playing for a pretty good side, so I'm probably not going to overthink it. He's a very good price, so I think Mbeumo will make it. Ben Rama is an interesting one because I've had him for most of the season. He hasn't left my squad yet, so that tells you that I'm considering keeping him. I just think West Ham are a very good side. Ben Rama is a very good player. He's been very close to points in the games where he hasn't got them, so I'm not against keeping Ben Rama, but I think when it comes to closer to the weekend, he probably will make way because I'm not overly keen on the Antonio Ben Rama double up, but maybe he will survive. Gallagher at Crystal Palace, Saka at Arsenal, and then the Man City guys, Foden and Grealish. So, do we take a punt on these guys for the short term because City have such good fixtures in the next three, or do we go for a more safe, secure player who's going to get 90 minutes? Forwards, in my thoughts, Lukaku, Antonio, Ivan Toney, Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin. So Calvert-Lewin's obviously dependent on fitness. If he was past fit, he would come into my thoughts on Friday. So I will reveal my latest wildcard draft after I cover a couple of these questions from Twitter.
Attention listeners, the Athletic Podcast Network is once again teaming up with our friends at Manscaped. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get 20% off their brand new performance package with free shipping by going to manscaped.com and entering the code EPL20. That's EPL20. Inside the package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to keep it all together. The Lawnmower 4.0 now comes with an LED spotlight you can turn on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Sign up to Manscaped and get 20% off and free shipping with a code EPL20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code EPL20 at manscaped.com.
First question is from Mike Martyr. Is Trent still worth the money, or is it better to spread the extra 1.5 million on a double up of City and Chelsea defenders? So yeah, I built a few drafts that don't have Trent, and they do look really nice. If you go for 2 City defenders, 2 Chelsea defenders, and someone like Livramento, it looks great because you've got that little bit of extra cash to spend, in midfield and attack as well. But I just think if Trent Alexander-Arnold is fit for Watford this weekend, he will definitely be in my squad. It is tempting to go without him because I think it's Manchester United in game week 9. So there is a case to be made, to hold off a little bit on him. But if he's anyway close to being fit for that Watford game, to me that's a game where he could post a massive score. And, Trent to me was a player you buy in game week 1 and you keep him all season. So just because he's out of my squad now doesn't mean I'm going to keep it that way. I'm looking to get him straight back in on the wild card. So hopefully Jurgen Klopp on Friday does give us a clear update on what his fitness is, and if it's positive, he will be on my team. So I do still think he's worth the money. When it comes to wildcard defenders, I think you can go down the route of, first of all, I think you can go either 3 defenders or 4 defenders. I think if you're going 3, you can go even one of each. Trent, 1 from Chelsea, 1 from City. You could just go Trent and double City. And if you're going for 4, I think it's probably Trent, double City, and 1 Chelsea. So that's the way I'm thinking. So Trent, very likely to be in my squad if he's past fit for the Watford game. Question from Antec99. Do we keep or sell Antonio? I've seen quite a few people tinkering with their wildcard squads this week with, I'm seeing a few drafts being posted on social media that don't have Antonio. And I just think it's probably a case of overthinking it. Yes, the fixtures are not as easy as they were a few weeks ago, but what more can you ask for? Antonio has got 9 attacking returns in 6 appearances. He's very cheap, given what he's doing. He's playing like a premium asset. So I think selling him is probably overthinking it. Like I said, West Ham, I think, are a very good side. They will score goals against anyone. And as long as Antonio is fit and healthy, I think he'll be in my squad for the foreseeable future. It hasn't even crossed my mind during my wildcard tinkers to take him out. Next 3 fixtures might look tricky on paper, but I don't think they're as tricky as the fixture tickers suggest. Everton, Tottenham and Aston Villa. To me, I think Antonio will get goals during those 3 fixtures. So for me, absolutely, Antonio is a keep until those hamstrings start singing. Question from Noah Style. Are Alonso or Chilwell viable and worth the potential upside with a strongish bench like Livramento and White? So I mentioned Rudiger and Azpilicueta on my wildcard watch list, but that doesn't mean I haven't ruled out someone like Alonso or Chilwell or even Reece James. You've got that little devil on my shoulder saying, Chilwell, if he plays, he can get 20 pointers in any given game week. The same with Alonso. So I don't think I'm going to do it, but I'm sure someone like Chilwell will probably appear in 1 or 2 of my drafts over the course of this week. And what Noah says here, I think it is viable, because when we have strong benches, players like Livramento and White, you can take a chance on a rotation risk player. Now, you don't want to have too many of them. You don't want to have a Chilwell in defence, maybe players like Jota, Man City midfielders in your midfield, because you don't want to have 3 or 4 rotation risks. But if you've got 1 or 2, I think it's fine when we have good bench options like Livramento and White. And I think even Shane Duffy can be thrown in there as well. So that's one of the reasons my first couple of wildcard drafts were 4 at the back, 4 big defenders, which means you can have just 1 cheap defensive bench option like Livramento. And as Game Week 8 gets closer, I like the idea more of having just 3 big defenders and then 2 good cheap defenders, because I think it makes your overall squad stronger. So you can have, for example, Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger as your back 3. Then you can have Livramento and White on the bench. And if you've got Livramento and White on the bench, then you can throw in a few punts into your team. You could even go Chilwell instead of Rudiger. If Chilwell doesn't play, he's very unlikely to get a cameo from the bench. Then you've got your Livramentos and your Whites to come in. So I like having a bench of Livramento and White, for example, instead of having a 4.5 million forward on the bench who's never going to play, or someone like Brownhill who's going to get you 2 points. I always think of defenders, when the game starts, they start on 6 points until they concede. So yeah, I think 2 cheap defenders is much better for the bench, because it does give you that squad depth, which we've needed this season, and we're going to continue to need it with COVID, with rotation from managers like Pep and Tuchel. So yeah, I'm leaning towards now having maybe 3 expensive defenders and then the 2 cheap guys on the bench. So I'm probably going to have a 3-4-3 formation. But I do think players like Chilwell and Alonso are viable. I think Chilwell is the way I would lean now if I was taking a punt on one of the Chelsea left wing backs. Question from Partho. Do you think Vardy is a better option than Lukaku now? My initial answer is no, but I think I'm guilty, like everyone else, or not everyone else, most other people this season, of overlooking Vardy, mainly because Leicester haven't been great this season, and I find it quite hard to trust, spending 10 plus million on a Leicester asset when the team haven't been performing well. They were 2-0 up against Crystal Palace, but it was 2 mistakes in the Crystal Palace defence. Crystal Palace should have won that game comfortably, really. They outplayed Leicester. Leicester were lucky to get the points. I think Vardy only had 10 touches in the game, something like that. I think after 20 minutes, he only had 1 touch. But again, Vardy doesn't need many chances to score, as we've seen in that Crystal Palace fixture. So, Vardy's not on my watch list. He probably should be, given what he's done, but I still prefer Lukaku. I still prefer Ronaldo. So Vardy just doesn't have a spot in my thoughts for the time being. If he continues to keep scoring, and we're all probably going to be forced to go there at some point. But again, with Leicester, I don't love the fixtures. They're a bit mixed for the next 5, and Lukaku has excellent fixtures. So I think it's still an easy choice. I still prefer Lukaku. I've got more faith in Chelsea as an outfit than I do over Leicester. So yeah, Vardy hopefully he just goes quiet. It's getting to a stage now where he's pretty annoying, because a lot of managers have him, in particular managers who maybe don't take the game as seriously as people like me and you do. So yeah, hopefully he stops scoring so we can start benefiting from the other strikers. Question from Tommy Brennan. With Pep Roulettes, are Ederson and Diaz a good Man City defensive double-up? So probably covered that already. Yes, I think it's viable, but when it comes to Manchester City double defence, I prefer Diaz, Cancelo, and then go for a cheap goalkeeper and spend the savings elsewhere in your squad. But certainly, if you want to avoid the rotation, if you think Cancelo is going to get some rotation over the next couple of game weeks, then maybe Ederson and Diaz will be the way to go. So yeah, I expect to see Ederson in a lot of wildcard squads, and it could be the way to go. Question from Jaideep. Is Kevin De Bruyne being overlooked as a viable premium asset? I don't think so. I understand the temptation for people to go there this week on a wildcard in particular, because Man City have the 3 very nice fixtures. But for me, I watched the Man City-Liverpool game a couple of days ago, had it recorded, and to me, De Bruyne looked really sluggish. He didn't look fit. So straight away, that's a red flag for me, because he may not start all 3 of these nice fixtures. I just think when you've got Salah's, when you've got Lukaku's, I don't have much interest in Kevin De Bruyne. I would even prefer Mane, I think, over De Bruyne at the moment. So to me, until he's looking 100% sharp, I'm not interested. I prefer the cheaper Man City midfielders, which brings me to Sammy's question, Foden or Grealish. So I've got both of them on the watch list, and I am very tempted to go, buy a ticket for Pep's lottery for the next 3 fixtures, because if you go for a Foden or a Grealish, it's quite easy then to downgrade to someone at 6.57 million in a couple of game weeks' time. There's plenty of options there. And I just think when the fixtures are so good, I really do like the idea of getting triple City, and hopefully it pays off. The question then is, do you go Foden or do you go Grealish, or do you go for one of the others? But I think these 2 are the best options. Grealish gets the most game time, but I think Foden's the more exciting option. He was very, very good in that Liverpool game. Got on the score sheet and could have had more in the game. So I think if I do end up buying a ticket to the lottery on Friday, I think it will be Foden. I think Grealish is he hasn't done enough. He's a good player, but is he a good FPL asset? I'm still not convinced. He's not overly clinical. So to me, he's someone who plays the pass to someone who gets the assist. So he's kind of the third player in the move a lot of times. So I just think Foden's more direct, and I have more faith in Foden to get goals than I do Grealish. So I'm leaning towards Foden if I take a punt on a Man City midfielder. But maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just stick to a more secure 90-minute player. Question from TJ. What's the best front 3 on a wildcard? For flexibility to have options in the near term, TJ is thinking Lukaku, Jimenez, Tony, because Jimenez can easily switch to Calvert-Lewin or Antonio based on form. So for me, I think the best 3 on a wildcard is Lukaku, as long as he is past fit for the weekend, because he's got the fixtures. He's a great captaincy option. I think Antonio should be kept. And then I would probably put Tony as my third option. And this is quite similar to what TJ said in terms of price points. You've got your expensive Lukaku. TJ went for Jimenez, who's a similar price to Antonio. And then you've got Tony, who's a little bit cheaper. So I like the kind of 3-tiered strike force, because it leaves you flexible. Lukaku could become Ronaldo or Vardy. Jimenez can become Calvert-Lewin, Antonio, Bamford. And then Tony can go to one of the cheaper strikers, Armstrong, Wang, if he keeps doing it. So I like the 3 kind of different price points up front at the moment. So I think best 3 is Lukaku, Antonio, and Tony. I do think Jimenez is a very good option as well, though. Question from Blair. Now that Wang seems to have secured a starting spot alongside Jimenez, is he a good placeholder for a couple of weeks before turning to Tony in Game Week 10? Or do you just go Tony from the outset, Game Week 8, from a fellow wildcarder? So I'm seeing a lot of teams with Wang in there this week, particularly wildcarders, and I don't love it. First of all, I don't love his price, because if you don't leave any cash in the bank, he's only about 5.6 million. It's quite hard to upgrade unless you leave some cash in the bank. And I think with a player like Tony, even though he plays Chelsea this week, I think we just get him right away, and it saves us a transfer in the future, because we're going to want Tony in a couple of weeks anyway when Brentford's fixtures really improve. And Tony can easily get something against Chelsea anyway, so I don't mind going there. I'm not convinced Wang is going to start week in, week out just yet. I think it's a little bit too early to go there. So I'm going to avoid and just see what happens, and I'll just come back to him in a couple of weeks' time if he is starting week in, week out. Even if he starts week in, week out, I'm not convinced he's going to get 90 minutes. He could be a 60 to 70 minute man if Wolves are not winning the game. So yeah, I'm not, Wang's not on my watch list. He's not going to be in my wildcard squad, but good luck to those of you who get him, because he does look great and he does seem to have struck up a good partnership with Jimenez. So could be a gem this season, but for me it's just a little bit early to go there, so I'm happy to hold off, see if he continues to start, continues to get goals, and I'll go there in a couple of weeks' time. So Tony is much more likely to be in my squad than Wang. Final question from FPL Boogle: who are the best Game Week 8 1-week punts for those wildcarding in Game Week 9? So yeah, I think Game Week 9 is a pretty good time to wildcard as well, particularly with a lot of question marks over players now during this international break. If you're on the fence about wildcarding Game Week 8, and if you haven't wildcarded yet, you can look at Game Week 9 as an alternative. If you are doing that, I think a Manchester City attacker against Burnley is a good 1-week punt. You can go for any of them really and just hope they start. Brighton play Norwich, so someone like Trossard or Mopai for 1 week, absolutely fine. And Tottenham play Newcastle, so I like Son or Kane also as a 1-week punt.
Listeners, we want to tell you all about a new offer from our friends at the helpful healthcare company Newman, who want to give all Athletic podcast listeners 60% off their first month's treatment. Newman are able to offer a range of treatments previously only available through your GP. From erectile dysfunction and hair loss treatment to diagnostic blood tests, sleep support and supplements, you can get the treatment you need from the comfort and privacy of your own home. All of Newman's consultations are free and treatments are delivered quickly and discreetly right to your door. To claim your 60% off, just visit newman.com/athletic, complete your free consultation and your discount will be applied at the checkout. That's numan.com/athletic for 60% off your first month of treatment. One last time, newman.com/athletic.
Moving on now to my current wildcard draft. I haven't done too much tinkering over the break. I always wait until kind of the second half of the second week of the break, because so much is up in the air. Players playing internationals, picking up knocks, and especially with COVID and players coming back late and stuff like that, we really can't lock in our teams until Friday. So I haven't done too much yet. This is what it currently looks like. Goalkeepers, Sanchez and Foster. Defenders, Trent, if he's fit, Cancelo, Azpilicueta. So those are my three big defenders at the moment: Trent, Cancelo, Azpi. And Azpi's in there because Rudiger has the flag. I think if Rudiger was healthy, he'll probably go in instead of Azpilicueta, although it's a 50-50 call on those two, and maybe I end up on Azpilicueta because he does have more attacking threat. And then I've got the two cheap guys for the bench: White at Arsenal and Livramento at Southampton. And what I like about I don't like the idea of going Sanchez and Duffy or Ramsdale and White. I like having one Brighton, one Arsenal. So that plays into my thinking with the goalkeeper as well. I think Sanchez and White is much safer because Sanchez and White are more nailed on than Ramsdale and Duffy, for example. So that's what has me leaning towards Sanchez and White as well as the combo. Midfield, Salah stays. Rafinha comes back in. I sold him a couple of weeks ago. He's one of the first names coming back in. I don't care if he misses game week 8 because of his travel. I'll just bench him and I'll have him for the good fixtures after. Mbumo at Brentford is in, and he's probably going to stay in, just again out of position, very cheap, good team, not one to overthink. And then the fourth midfield position is the one that will probably change quite a few times this week. Currently it's on Foden. I haven't ruled out keeping Benrahma, and there's a couple of other options there as well. Maybe Son finds his way in there, but I would have to cut a few corners elsewhere. And then Brownhill will probably stay just as a 4.4 third bench. Most weeks it'll be White, Livramento first and second sub, and then Brownhill third sub. And then up front, Lukaku will be there as long as he's healthy. Antonio will stay, and the third striker spot could change as well. I've got Tony at the moment, but I haven't ruled out Jimenez or Calvert-Lewin if he's fit, but most likely Tony will go in. I'll go for the Brentford double up, which is not ideal against Chelsea this week, but long term I think Mbumo and Antonio as a double up are going to be in a lot of teams in the near future, and they will offer good value this season. So that gives you an insight into what I'm thinking. I mean, most wildcard teams you look at this week are pretty similar anyway, so you're probably not going to see too many surprises in mine come the weekend. The biggest surprise you'll probably see is whether I go Son or not, and at the moment I'm leaning towards no, because I just think 10 million, it's quite hard to fit him in. I'd probably have to lose 2 or 3 players that I really like, so for that reason Son probably won't make it. Captaincy for game week 8, I think it's an easy one this week. I think we go Salah against Watford. Watford just sacked their manager. They've got Ranieri. Salah on another level, as I mentioned, 6 goals, 4 assists, averaging 10 points per game. And I've got very fond memories. One of my favourite ever St. Patrick's days was in a pub in Glasgow when Salah was playing against Watford. We had him captain. I think he scored 4 times and got an assist. I think he might have got 26 points. So huge returns. So hopefully he can do something similar again against Watford. The other options, Lukaku is away to Brentford, but the flag is a slight concern. Ronaldo is away to Leicester, which I think is quite a good fixture. Leicester have conceded the most shots in the box in the league this season, so I think if you've still got Ronaldo, I think he's a viable captaincy option, even though he frustrated us the last couple of game weeks. Manchester City play Burnley as well at home, so if you fancy a differential and you fancy a risky captain pick, I think a Manchester City ass, it doesn't have to be an attacker. Someone like Cancelo even could be a good captain against Burnley, but don't blame me when it blows up in your face. I think Salah is the way to go this week. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. It's good to have FPL back this weekend. Please leave a review wherever you're listening, and make sure to hit the subscribe button for Friday's episode. If you'd like to support me as a full-time fantasy manager, check out patreon.com/FPL General, where you'll get extra content and podcasts every week of the season. Have a great week, and I will talk to you again on Friday.
The Athletic.